1936, Unit 731 in Pingfang District, Northeast China. A Chinese prisoner is sitting in his cell trembling with fear. He had heard stories from his cellmates that prisoners were cut open alive without anesthesia and tortured to the death by researchers, blown up with explosives or mummified alive. Today may be his turn. In few minutes, he heard prison guards entering his cell block, their footsteps getting louder, and finally his fears come true. Unfortunately today he got picked for experimentation. The guards drag him to an operation table on another building. He cries and begs them for life but to no avail. They restrain him on the table and leave the room after that. Few seconds later a man enters the room and locks the door behind him. The prisoner starts to cry but the man proceeds to take a scalpel and begins to cut open the man's chest. This is the story of Unit 731. Unit 731, a covert unit of the Imperial Japanese Army, was involved in lethal human experimentation and biological weapons manufacturing during the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II. Between 1936 and 1945, around 14,000 victims were murdered, and at least 300,000 died due to infectious illnesses. Based in Harbin, it had branch offices throughout China and Southeast Asia. It was established in 1936. It was responsible for notorious war crimes committed by the Japanese armed forces. It conducted tests on dehumanized individuals, including disease injections, controlled dehydration, biological weapons testing, and organ harvesting. Victims included kidnapped men, women, children, and babies born from systemic rape. The majority were Chinese, with a significant minority being Russian. Unit 731 also produced biological weapons, used in areas not occupied by Japanese forces. Originally established by the Imperial Japanese Military Police, it was commanded by General Shirashii until the end. Japan initiated its biological weapons program in 1930, aiming to use it as a weapon in interstate conflicts. After the Japanese invasion of Manchuria in 1931, Japan built Unit 731 in Manchuria to separate research from the island and access Chinese individuals for use as test subjects. The facilities included medical research and experimentation areas, as well as detention spaces, serving as a prison. Established in 1936, Unit 731 expanded to include 3,000 staff members, 150 buildings, and the capacity to detain up to 600 prisoners concurrently for experimental purposes. In 1939, General Ishii discovered 6 potent pathogens: anthrax, typhoid, paratyphoid, glanders, dysentery, and plague-infected human fleas. These agents were strong enough to ignite epidemics and were resilient to aerial dispersal. Ishii conducted field trials on civilians to develop a method of spreading the pathogens efficiently. He developed biodegradable bombs housing rats and fleas, and deployed anthrax-contaminated birds and feathers from low-flying aircraft. In 1940 and 1941, plague-infected fleas were spread by low-flying airplanes over Chinese cities, killing tens of thousands. An expedition to Nanjing spread typhoid and paratyphoid germs into the city's wells, marshes, and houses, and infusing them in local snacks. Yoshimura Hisato, a physiologist at Unit 731, studied hypothermia and frostbite reactions in human subjects. He submerged prisoners' limbs in ice-filled water until they became frozen solid, and ice covered their skin. Hisato measured the time it took for frostbite to develop. He tried various methods for rapidly thawing the frozen appendage, including hot water, fire, or untreated subjects. Unit 731 found that the best treatment for frostbite was immersing the subject in water slightly warmer than 100 degrees but never more than 122 degrees. Vivisection is a surgical procedure used for scientific research and experimentation. In Unit 731, thousands of victims, including Chinese communist prisoners, children, and elderly farmers, were infected with diseases like cholera and the plague. Their organs were removed before death to study their effects. Those studying gangrene had their limbs amputated, reattached, crushed, frozen, or cut off. After exhaustion, they were typically shot or killed by lethal injection. Prisoners also underwent vivisection to study blood loss. This practice involved amputating limbs, reattaching them to the opposite side, and removing parts of organs like the brain, lungs, and liver. Imperial Japanese Army surgeon Ken Iwase estimated that at least 1,000 Japanese personnel were involved in this practice in mainland China. These vivisections